My name is Clara Whitmore. I'm 31 years old. 7 months ago, I said yes to a man I believed I was building a future with. Not the dramatic kind of yes. Not the viral video, champagne spray, strangers clapping kind. Just a quiet, grounded yes. The kind that feels safe. Evan Hale was 28. Smart, polished. The kind of man who knew how to sound sincere without ever fully committing to the weight of his words. We'd been together for 2 years, living together for one. When he proposed, it didn't feel rushed. It felt earned, logical, like the natural next step instead of a surprise. We were already sharing a life. Groceries, calendars, rent, quiet routines that made things feel permanent. Already talking about when, not if. Evan was pursuing a master's degree in marketing at a private university. Competitive, expensive. The kind of school that sold ambition as much as education. He used to work retail, long shifts, inconsistent pay, always tired. When he got accepted, we talked everything through. Long nights at the kitchen table, numbers scribbled on notepads, careful planning. He quit his job to focus on school full-time. I didn't push him. I didn't pressure him. I offered. I worked in software sales. Not flashy, not rich, but stable, comfortable, enough to cover rent, utilities, groceries, and his tuition, $22,000 per semester. Yes, it was a lot, but I saw it as an investment in us. We talked about him paying me back once his career took off, but it never felt like a debt. We were engaged. Marriage was coming. What was mine was his, or so I believed. Looking back now, I can see the cracks. The way he got more affectionate as tuition deadlines approached. The way he joked about how lucky he was to have me, always with a laugh that landed just a beat too late. The way he talked about the future like it was something waiting for him somewhere else. But when you love someone, you don't interrogate tone. You trust. 3 weeks before everything collapsed, I came home early from a client meeting that got canceled. It was a Thursday, just after 2 in the afternoon. I let myself in quietly. My head was pounding. All I wanted was the couch and silence. That's when I heard Evan's voice, coming from the bedroom. The door wasn't fully closed. At first, I didn't think anything of it. He talked to friends on the phone all the time. School stress, group projects, complaints. Then I heard him laugh. Not his polite laugh, the real one. No, I'm serious, he said. The second the spring tuition payment goes through, I'm out. I stopped moving, completely froze. She's so clueless, Evan continued, his voice light, amused. Like, yeah, babe, of course I see a future with you. Meanwhile, I've been keeping my options open. My stomach dropped. I pressed my hand against the wall to steady myself. He kept talking. The ring? He said with a quiet chuckle. I bought it. If I walk, I take it back. I can sell it for 8 or 9 grand, maybe more. There was a pause while the other person spoke. Then Evan lowered his voice, like he was explaining something carefully planned. Look, he said, my backup plan is going back to my ex. She's seeing a doctor now. Residency starts in 6 months. Real money. But I need to finish this degree first. My heart started pounding so hard it hurt. So, yeah, he added casually, I'm staying until she pays the spring tuition. Deadline's January 18th. After that, I'm done playing house. I stood there for what felt like forever. 2 minutes, maybe less. My hands went cold. My chest felt hollow. And then something inside me shut off. Not anger, not tears, just clarity. I backed away from the door without making a sound. Left the apartment. Sat in my car without turning the engine on. I replayed his words again and again. I'm only staying until she pays. I came home later at my usual time. Evan was in the kitchen, cooking. Hey, babe, he said brightly. How was work? Long, I replied. What's for dinner? Chicken stir-fry. Your favorite. I smiled, kissed his cheek. Sounds perfect. That night, he curled up next to me on the couch, played with my hair, told me he loved me. I said it back, and meant something very different than he did. Because by morning, I had a plan, and everything was about to change. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay there beside Evan, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing, staring at the ceiling as my mind replayed the same sentences over and over, each time a little sharper, a little colder. The second the tuition goes through, I'm out. I'm done playing house. There was a strange calm that settled in after the initial shock wore off. Not peace, more like emotional anesthesia. The kind that kicks in when your brain decides panic would be useless. By morning, I wasn't crying. I was planning. Evan woke up cheerful, like always. Rolled over, kissed my shoulder. Morning, he said. You okay? You barely moved all night. Just tired, I replied easily. It was terrifying how natural the lie felt. Over coffee, he reminded me, casually, about the tuition deadline. Spring semester starts the 20th, he said, scrolling on his phone. Payments due the 18th, just so we don't forget. We? I nodded. I know. He smiled, grateful, relieved. That smile stayed with me all day. At work, I barely registered emails or meetings. My hands moved on autopilot while my mind replayed the call in fragments. The laugh, the confidence, the certainty that he had already written the ending of our story. One where I was nothing more than a stepping stone. By lunch, I had started documenting. Not emotionally, practically. I wrote down the date, the time, the exact words I remembered. Not because I planned to confront him immediately, but because something inside me said, "You'll need this later." That night, Evan cooked dinner again. He was affectionate, attentive, almost rehearsed. "I don't say this enough," he said, brushing his fingers along my arm, "but I really appreciate everything you're doing for me. I couldn't do this without you." I looked at him and wondered how many times he'd practiced that line. "Of course," I said softly. "That's what partners do." Over the next few days, I watched him more closely. Not suspiciously, quietly. I noticed how he checked his phone whenever I mentioned money, how his mood lifted whenever tuition came up, how he talked about the future in vague, non-committal ways. Someday, eventually, once things settle. Saturday night, we went to dinner with his parents. His mother beamed at me across the table. "You're such a blessing to Evan," she said. "Not every woman would support a man through school like this." Evan squeezed my hand. "We're a team," he said. His father pulled me aside later. "You're doing a good thing," he said quietly, helping him invest in his future. I smiled. I want him to succeed. And that part was still true. Just not like this. The hardest part wasn't pretending I loved him. It was realizing he'd never been pretending at all. He meant everything he said, just not in the way I thought. By the second week, Evan started getting nervous. He reminded me about the deadline more often, asked questions he'd never asked before. "You're still good to submit it, right? Did you need the invoice again? Do you want me to sit with you when you do it?" I reassured him every time. "Don't worry," I said. "I've got it." And the more relaxed he became, the colder my resolve grew. I called the jeweler on Monday morning. Asked about the engagement ring. They confirmed what I already suspected. Returns weren't possible on custom pieces, but resale or store credit was. Not that I planned to act on it yet. I just wanted to know my options. That same day, I checked my bank account. The tuition payment hadn't been scheduled. I'd always done it last minute. I closed the app slowly, my pulse steady. Perfect. 3 weeks felt like an eternity. Every kiss felt staged. Every "I love you" felt transactional. But I stayed, because timing matters. And I wasn't going to give him the chance to walk away with my money and his dignity intact. By the time January 18th approached, Evan was almost vibrating with anticipation. He thought he was in control. He had no idea the clock was ticking for both of us. And when it stopped, only one of us would be ready. The last week before the deadline felt unreal. Like living inside a carefully staged performance where only one of us knew the script was fake. Evan became attentive. Not in a loving way, in a monitoring way. He asked what time I'd be home, whether I'd be working late, if I wanted help just in case with the tuition portal. Every question was wrapped in concern, but underneath it was impatience, anticipation. He was counting down. I was too. On Tuesday night, he brought up wedding planning out of nowhere. "We should probably lock in a date soon," he said, flipping channels. "Venues book fast." I glanced at him. "Yeah? Maybe next fall," he continued casually, "once things are settled." Settled. Another word that suddenly meant something else. "That sounds nice," I said. He smiled, satisfied, like he'd checked a box. That night, I lay awake again, staring at the dark, thinking about how easily he could talk about a future he had no intention of staying for. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger requires energy. What I felt instead was something colder, sharper, focused. I started packing in my head. What I'd take, what I'd leave, what I'd document. I made a list on my phone, hidden inside a notes app Evan never touched. Laptop, passport, work documents, chargers, clothes for a week. Friday night, he was unusually affectionate. He ordered takeout, lit candles, poured wine. "You've been stressed lately," he said. "I just want you to relax." I watched him move around the kitchen, confident, comfortable, completely unaware that the ground under him was already gone. "Thank you," I said. "That's really sweet." He leaned down and kissed my forehead. "I don't know what I'd do without you." I almost laughed. Saturday, we had brunch with his sister. She talked nonstop about his future, his career, his potential, how proud she was of him. "You're lucky," she said to me. "He's really going places." I smiled politely. "I know." Sunday night, Evan brought up the tuition again. So Friday's the deadline, he said, trying to sound casual. 11:59 p.m., right? Right. Can you do it earlier in the day, just so there's no stress? I looked at him for a moment. Sure, I said. We'll talk about it. He relaxed instantly. That was the thing that stayed with me. The way his entire body loosened when he believed the money was secured. Not love. Relief. Thursday night, January 17th, he barely left my side. He cooked dinner, cleaned up, offered to massage my shoulders. You okay? He asked softly. You've been quiet. Just tired, I said. Big week. Tomorrow's a big day, he added, smiling. Yeah, I said, it is. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Not because I felt safe, because I felt ready. Friday morning, I woke up before him, watched him sleep. This man had worn my ring, slept in my bed, let me believe I was his future while quietly planning his exit. I leaned down and kissed his forehead, just like always. Love you, he murmured, half asleep. You too, I said. I called in sick to work, drove to a coffee shop across town, sat there for hours, untouched latte cooling in front of me. This was the moment he'd been waiting for, the moment he thought would secure his escape. By mid-afternoon, I went back to the apartment. Evan wasn't home. Study group until 5. I packed quickly, efficiently. No hesitation, no second guessing. When I was done, I sat on the couch and waited. At 5:47 p.m., the door opened. Evan walked in, smiling. Hey, he said, you're home early. Yeah, I replied calmly. How was your study group? I asked. Good, super productive. Then he looked at me, really looked. Did you submit the payment? I met his eyes. Not yet. His smile faltered. Babe, the deadline's tonight. I know, he swallowed. So, can you do it now? I stood up. Sure, I said evenly. But first, we need to talk. The color drained from his face. Evan stared at me like he didn't understand the words. Talk about what? He asked, forcing a laugh that didn't land. I didn't sit back down. I stayed standing, one hand resting lightly on the back of the chair, steadying myself. About the phone call I overheard 3 weeks ago, I said. The one where you said you were only staying with me until I paid your spring tuition. The room went completely still. Not tense, empty. What phone call? He said quickly. Too quickly. I didn't blink. The one where you laughed about how clueless I was, I continued. The one where you said you'd take the ring back and sell it. The one where you talked about your backup plan, your ex, the doctor, the residency. For a second, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Because I watched the moment his lies ran out of road. That's not... He stopped, swallowed, tried again. You took that out of context. Then give me the context, I said calmly. He opened his mouth, closed it, ran a hand through his hair. I was venting, he said finally, to a friend. I didn't mean it. Which friend? He hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. The one whose girlfriend is dating a doctor? I asked. His face went pale, then red. You were eavesdropping? He snapped, suddenly defensive. In your own apartment? I asked. That I pay for? This is ridiculous, he said, pacing now. You're twisting things. You said you were staying until the tuition was paid, I replied. That's not ambiguous. That's a plan. Silence stretched between us. His voice dropped. You don't understand how much pressure I'm under. I almost laughed. No, I said. You don't understand how close you were to getting exactly what you wanted. He stopped pacing. Clara, he said softly, reaching for me. I love you. I stepped back. You love my bank account. That's not fair. What's not fair, I said evenly, is pretending to build a life with someone while planning your exit behind their back. His breathing changed. Fast, shallow. No, he said, shaking his head. No, no, no. You can't do this tonight. The deadline is tonight, I reminded him. That's why you stayed, right? His hands started shaking. If you don't pay, he said, panic creeping in, I get dropped from my classes. I shrugged. That sounds like a you problem. His composure cracked completely. Please, he said, voice breaking. I was stupid. I didn't mean it. I'll do anything. Anything except tell me the truth, I replied. Tears spilled down his face. We can fix this, he insisted. Counseling, therapy, whatever you want. No, I said simply. You can't do this to me, he sobbed. I've been planning this semester for months. And you've been planning to use me just as long, I said. He grabbed my arm. I'll do anything, he begged. Please, just submit the payment and we can talk. I pulled my arm free. I want you out of my apartment by Sunday. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. Where am I supposed to go? I picked up my bag. Maybe your ex can help, I said. Or the doctor. I walked toward the door. He screamed after me, my name, my heart, my future, but I didn't stop. Outside, my hands were shaking. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. But underneath it all was something else. Relief. Like a weight I'd been carrying for years had finally dropped. By the time I reached my car, my phone was already lighting up. Calls, texts, voicemails. I turned it off and drove away. I stayed with my sister that night. She opened the door in sweatpants, hair pulled back, eyes already worried before I said a word. "You okay?" she asked. I shook my head. "Can I stay for a few days?" She didn't ask questions, just stepped aside and let me in. Once I'd dropped my bag, the words came out in pieces. The overheard call, the 3 weeks, the deadline, the way his face changed when he realized the money wasn't coming. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she exhaled slowly. "That's calculated," she said. "Cold." "He was using me," I replied. "I know," she said. "I'm just saying, you waited, you timed it." "He would have taken the money and left the next day," I said quietly. "I just changed the order." She nodded. "Fair." Later that night, I turned my phone back on. It exploded. 72 texts, 30 missed calls, all from Evan. The first messages were apologetic. "Please answer. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. We can fix this." Then desperate. "I'm begging you. I'll pay you back every cent. You're ruining my life." Then angry. "How could you do this to me? This is cruel. I hate you." Mixed in were messages from his mother. "You made a commitment. My son is hysterical. This is financial abuse." I blocked them all. Saturday passed in a blur. Takeout boxes, old movies, long silences. Sunday morning, I got a message from an unknown number. I moved out. Took my stuff. Thanks for nothing. Good. At least it was done. I went back to the apartment around noon. Evan was gone. Most of his clothes were gone too. Shoes, toiletries, books. But the apartment didn't feel empty. It felt violated. My PlayStation was missing. My noise-canceling headphones. A watch my grandfather had given me. A hoodie I'd worn until the fabric softened. Petty theft to go with the emotional manipulation. Perfect. I took photos of everything. Every empty shelf, every missing item. Then I texted him from a Google Voice number. "You have 24 hours to return my property, or I file a police report." The response came almost immediately. "Sue me." I didn't reply. I filed the report. The officer was sympathetic but realistic. "Roommate disputes are tricky," he said. "Since he lived there, it's hard to prove theft versus disagreement over ownership. Small claims court is your best option." I nodded. I'd expected that. Monday morning, I filed the paperwork. Filing fee, $150. Court date, March. That's when the messages started coming from other people. His best friend, his cousin, someone I barely recognized. "You're heartless. Real partners support each other. You ruined his future." I didn't respond. I screenshot everything. Tuesday morning, I got a call from the jeweler. "Ma'am," the woman said carefully, "someone came in yesterday with your engagement ring attempting to return it." My stomach tightened. "And?" "We informed him only the purchaser can process returns." He became upset. "Did he leave the ring?" I asked. "No, he left with it." I hung up and laughed. A hollow, incredulous sound. So he really had planned to sell it. That afternoon, I called my cousin, the lawyer. She listened quietly as I explained everything. "The ring is yours," she said without hesitation. "It's a conditional gift. No marriage, no ring. You can add it to the claim." "And the tuition?" I asked. "Did you sign anything?" she asked. "No." "Then you owe him nothing. Verbal promises aren't enforceable. This isn't financial abuse. It's boundaries." For the first time in weeks, I felt something loosen in my chest. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't cruel. I was just done being used. But Evan wasn't done yet. Not even close. Evan didn't disappear after that. He escalated. Wednesday morning, the email started. Sent from his school account. "You destroyed my future. I had to drop all my classes. Do you understand what you've done to me?" My advisor keeps asking questions. What am I supposed to tell them? I didn't respond. I forwarded everything to my cousin. "Good," she texted back. "Let him keep talking." Every message felt less like heartbreak and more like strategy, each one crafted to make me feel responsible for the consequences of his choices. By Thursday, it escalated again. I opened my mailbox and found a thick envelope, legal letterhead. My stomach dropped. Inside was a demand letter. He was requesting $22,000 for the tuition I'd promised, plus $11,200 for emotional distress and the return of shared property. The tone was aggressive, condescending, confident. Too confident. The letterhead looked generic. No bar number, no firm address, just a logo and a signature. I Googled the firm name. Nothing. Not even a website. I sent a photo to my cousin. Her reply came back instantly. "This is fake, like embarrassingly fake. Also, impersonating a lawyer is a crime." I stared at the letter again, this time with different eyes. So this was his new plan. Intimidation. I added the letter to my growing evidence folder. Friday night, exactly 1 week after I walked out, there was pounding on my door. Hard, aggressive. I checked the peephole. Evan's father. I didn't open it. I know you're in there, he shouted. Open the door. Sir, I said through the door, my voice steady. You need to leave or I'll call the police. You owe my son that money, he yelled. You made a promise. I don't owe him anything, I replied. Please leave. I'll take you to court, he threatened. You'll pay for this. I called the police. They arrived in 10 minutes. I watched through the peephole as they spoke to him. He gestured wildly at my door, voice raised. Eventually, they knocked. I opened it. This gentleman says you owe his son money, one officer said. I offered to pay tuition while we were engaged, I said calmly. We broke up before the payment was due. I chose not to pay. Do you have a written agreement? The officer asked. No. The officer turned back to Evan's father. This is a civil matter. You can't harass her at home. You need to leave. But, sir, the officer said firmly, leave now or I'll cite you for trespassing. He left, glaring at me like I'd committed some unforgivable sin. Afterward, the officer looked at me with concern. You might want to consider a restraining order if this continues. I'm documenting everything, I said. Good, he replied. Keep doing that. That night, I sat on my couch in the dark for a long time. All of this. Over money. Money I'd offered freely. Money he'd planned to take while laughing about me behind my back. And still, somewhere deep down, a flicker of guilt tried to surface. Not about the tuition, about the timing, the precision, the coldness. But then I remembered his voice, the way he'd laughed, the certainty in his plan. He wasn't sorry he'd used me. He was sorry it hadn't worked, and that made the guilt disappear. February crawled by. The harassment didn't stop, it just changed shape. New numbers, throwaway emails, a couple of handwritten notes shoved into my mailbox with no return address. Same message every time. You ruined him. You'll regret this. You think you're smarter than everyone. I documented everything. Screenshots, dates, times. By the time March arrived, my evidence folder was thick enough to make a sound when I dropped it on the table. On March 15th, I walked into small claims court with my cousin beside me. Evan was already there. He sat hunched forward, jaw tight, hands clasped together like he was praying for something to go his way for once. Beside him, his mother, and a man I recognized immediately. The lawyer, the fake letterhead guy. He wore a cheap suit and carried himself like confidence was something he'd borrowed for the day. The judge looked tired before the case even started. Evan went first. He claimed I'd refused to return his property, that I'd locked him out, that I'd punished him financially out of spite. He listed the items: my PlayStation, my headphones, my grandfather's watch. The audacity was almost impressive. My cousin stood when it was our turn. She didn't raise her voice, didn't dramatize. She just presented facts. Photos of the apartment before Evan moved out, my belongings visible in every frame, receipts in my name, a close-up photo of the inscription on my grandfather's watch. Then she addressed the ring. Your Honor, she said evenly, the engagement ring was purchased by my client as a conditional gift contingent upon marriage. The engagement ended. The ring should be returned. The man beside Evan opened his mouth. She deserves to keep it for emotional damages. The judge cut him off instantly. Are you an attorney? No. No, Your Honor. Then why are you speaking in my courtroom? Silence. The judge turned to Evan. Do you have legal representation? Evan looked panicked. I thought this was small claims. I thought he could help. You may represent yourself, the judge said curtly. He may not. Evan swallowed hard. The judge reviewed the evidence. 10 minutes, maybe less. Then she looked up. Ruling, she said. The defendant will return the engagement ring and all listed property within 14 days or pay the estimated value of $13,000. Evan's face went white. Plaintiff's claim for shared assets is dismissed. Court costs were split evenly. Just like that. Outside the courthouse, his mother rounded on me. You happy now? She snapped. Was it worth destroying him? I didn't destroy him, I said quietly. He did that himself. Evan finally spoke. I hope you know you're going to be alone forever, he said bitterly. No one wants someone this cold. I shrugged. Maybe, I said, but at least I won't be financing someone else's escape plan. I walked away. And for the first time in months, I didn't look back. Winning in court didn't end it. It just changed the tone. After March 15th, Evan stopped contacting me directly. No more texts, no emails, no fake legal threats. Instead, he let other people do it for him. I started noticing it in public first. At the grocery store, a woman I recognized from his study group lingered too close in the produce aisle. You know, she said casually, like she was commenting on the apples, he had to move back in with his parents. I nodded once and kept shopping. At the gas station, someone I'd never spoken to before stepped up beside my car. You really didn't have to ruin his life like that, he said, shaking his head. That was extreme. I didn't answer. I just got in my car and drove away. That's when I realized something uncomfortable. People didn't want the truth. They wanted a story that made them feel better. A cruel woman, a helpless man, money as punishment. The reality that Evan had planned to use me, counted down to the deadline, laughed about it, was inconvenient. So they ignored it. Even at work, things got strange. One afternoon, my manager called me into his office. "Hey," he said gently, "I just want to give you a heads up." "About what?" "Someone called the front desk earlier, claimed to be your emergency contact, said there was a family crisis and they needed to reach you immediately." My stomach tightened. "They wouldn't give a name," he continued. But when the receptionist asked which family member was in trouble, they hung up. I already knew. "Did the number have a local area code?" I asked. "Yes, Evans." "Thanks for telling me," I said. "If they call again, please don't give them any information." "Already handled," my manager replied. "Just wanted you to be aware." I documented it that night. Every incident went into the file. Because harassment doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like persistence. A week later, his mother tried a different tactic. She emailed my work account. I didn't know how she got it. The subject line read, "Please read a mother's plea." I almost deleted it. Curiosity won. She wrote about Evan's mistakes, about how stressed he'd been, about how much pressure young men face. She wrote that he loved me, that he'd planned a future, that I'd thrown away 2 years over one overheard conversation taken out of context. She wrote that he'd dropped out of school, that he was depressed, that he barely ate. Then came the ask. "You have the power to fix this, not by getting back together, but by paying the tuition." $22,000 is nothing compared to the value of a person's future. I read it twice, then forwarded it to my cousin. Her response was immediate. "Do not reply. She's trying to guilt you into creating a paper trail that helps him." Still, I won't pretend it didn't get to me. Late at night, alone in my apartment, I replayed the timing in my head. The precision, the calmness, the way I'd waited. Was I too harsh? Then I remembered Evan's voice. The laughter, the confidence, the plan. If I'd paid that tuition, he would have left the next day. No apology, no explanation, just gone. I didn't destroy his future. I just refused to fund his exit. And slowly that truth settled in. 14 days after the ruling, a box appeared outside my apartment door. No knock, no note. Just a taped cardboard box sitting on the welcome mat like an afterthought. Inside were my things. The PlayStation, the headphones, my grandfather's watch, and the ring, still in its velvet case. I sat on the floor for a long time, the box open in front of me, staring at it. Not angry, not sad, just finished. The next day I went back to the jeweler. They offered me $9,200. Not what I paid, but more than Evan would have gotten. I took it. A week later, I booked a solo trip, somewhere I'd always wanted to go but never quite prioritized. I spent a week waking up without tension in my chest, walking unfamiliar streets, sitting alone in cafes without checking my phone, just existing. When I got back, my sister asked me something I'd been expecting. "Any regrets?" I thought about it, about the waiting, the timing, the look on his face when he realized the money wasn't coming. "About the breakup?" I asked. "No," she said. "About how you did it." I was quiet for a moment. "Maybe I could have handled it differently," I admitted. "But he wouldn't have." She nodded. "Fair. It's been 6 months now. Evan's still working retail, according to mutual friends who won't stop updating me. Apparently, he's saving for community college. The ex never came back. The doctor never materialized. His family still thinks I'm the villain. I got promoted at work, started seeing someone new, slowly, carefully, redecorated my apartment, built a life that didn't involve being someone's safety net. Sometimes, late at night, the guilt tries to creep in. Then I remember the phone call, the laughter, the certainty, the way he wore my ring while planning his escape. The tuition was due at 11:59 p.m. I ended it at 5:47 p.m. Perfect timing. Petty? Maybe. Regrets? None. He played a game. I just played it better.